If I would have been in the time and lived in the time of Shaka Zulu, the great fulfiller of the I'm a Zulu. You wouldn't have had to beg me. If I lived in the time of Shaka Zulu, I would have been with Shaka Zulu with my zebra skin on one day and my leopard skin on the next day and my lion skin on the next day with my shield in hand and my spear in hand, fighting with Shaka Zulu against our enemy. Zulu! 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 That's what you are. You are Zulu. You from the original nation of the tribe of Shabbat. What you must know about the tribe of Shabbat is that the blood of the Zulu runs warm in the veins of the tribe of Shabbat. The blood of the Kosa, the blood of the Maasai, the blood of all of them run warm. In the Yoruba, all of them, the blood runs warm in the veins of Shabbat. Shabbat represents all of the tribes of Africa here in the hells of North America. So if I would have been here in the time of Shaka, I would have been moving against our enemy in South Africa. In Shaka Zulu. If I had lived in the time of Hannibal, Brother Doug E. Fresh, Brother James, Sister Lisa, if I had lived in the time of Hannibal, I would have had one of the strongest, buckiest elephants I could ride. I'd have been on my elephant at Hannibal's side. I wouldn't have found something else to do in Hannibal's day. Whatever my gift was, my talent was, I would have used it for Hannibal. Hannibal was the freedom fighter of the hour. And I would have wanted to be with the freedom fighter of the hour. Hannibal didn't have an extra elephant. I would have been on the back of Hannibal's elephant riding with Hannibal, moving against the Prussia in Rome in southern Europe. I would have been with him. I would have lived, Sister Lisa, in the time of Queen Nzinga, of Queen Candace, or Queen Candace. I would have been too young or too weak myself and didn't have the leadership quality. No hang up. I would have been backing up Queen Nzinga. I would have been backing up Queen Candace. I would have been one of the followers of Queen Candace or Queen Nzinga. I ain't got no hang-ups about whether it's a woman or a man. Hell, I just want to get free.
And we're just starting the class tonight, brothers and sisters. So, what we're going to do right now is we're going to bring on another strong black woman, and that's Sister Shahrazad Ali. That's right, Sister Shahrazad Ali. Hold on. Come on up here, black woman. Let me talk about you. You've heard a lot about this sister, but now we want you to hear from her. You've heard a lot of misconceptions and things thrown out there, but when I was sitting with her in her vehicle, and I said, well, Sister Shahrazad Ali, you said this. She said, well, brother, did you read what I said? And I said, well, you know, because I really hadn't read all of what she said. I had read bits and pieces, and I had heard through rumor and innuendo. But this is a strong sister. She loves the black nation very much. She loves the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. She wants to see the black man lifted up, and any black woman who's behind the black man. We need to get behind this sister, hear what she's saying, why she's saying it. She's been seen and heard on many different venues and formats throughout the planet. And as I say it again, when she says the black man and the black woman, we just have to define terms. When she says to listen and accept and follow the guidance of a black man, she's not talking about a pimp, not talking about a dope pusher. She's not talking about a disrespectful black man. She's talking about a black man who's living out his true way of life as a God on the planet Earth. So let's hear from this black woman right now. Let's receive her like she ought to be received. Sister Shahrazad Ali.
Thank good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. I'm not really sure how to follow up Sister Kwesi or Brother Malik. They are two such great speakers, and I have been so busy. I've been traveling, I've been running so, and when Brother Malik called me, I told him I just wouldn't have time. I just was going to be too exhausted. I just had some other stuff going. But as we all know, I know you all know here in D.C., he's a very persistent young man. And so he didn't stop calling until I said, okay, I'll be there. okay, Malik, I'll come, you know. But we are very, very grateful to have been the mother of such an example as Malik Zulu Shabazz. He is the type of young man that we are trying to birth. And the type of young man that we need for the future. Can you get it straight?
I can get out of the camera.
Oh, is that it? Yeah, I'm not big as everybody else. They have to get the mic right. But when Malik asked me to come, he told me that he was having a black education conference. And so, of course, that always intrigued me because I know that we need education and re-education on many things. So I don't want to today just, like sometimes I will have a tendency to do, to just describe the problems and leave it up to you to figure out what the solutions are. Today I want to offer some solutions and some plainer descriptions of some things that we can possibly work on our own self. We have to look at what kind of education do we need. We know we need an education on history. We have several educators here this weekend, yesterday and today, and all of us don't necessarily agree on the same history. So we know that that's something that we need an education on. And we need an education on how to come to an agreement. How we can finally get up on some topic that we all can agree on so we can try to make some progress in that area. So considering that, I wanted to concentrate on how to get a re-education about our own personal self. As I have learned, you know, we are very sensitive to correction. It is very difficult for us to allow anyone to point out to us or to tell us that we need to improve on something, or that we are doing something wrong, or that if we keep doing that wrong, we're going to ultimately destroy ourselves. It's very difficult for us to accept that. We are very, very sensitive about things. And it's certainly very difficult for us to accept instruction and correction from somebody that looks like us. We have an even more difficult time, and that gets all the way down to whether it's our parent or our mate or our sister or our brother. If they look like us, we kind of suspicious if they talk about us, and we decide that they're not really trying to help us. They're really trying to criticize us and destroy us. And once we decide that the correction is not really based on something that's wrong with us, then of course we become combative and defensive. So let's try today to keep our mind open more. I work around the whole country year after year. It's been 5 years I've been out here now trying to reach us on some level. And it's very difficult. These brothers and this sister here can bear witness. It's very difficult to teach us as a people, because we have been tricked in so many different kinds of ways. When you start talking about re-educating us or giving us our first education, it gets to be very difficult, because we have been trained into so many wrong ideas. It's very hard to get any new information in. And we tend to reject it, especially if it requires us to change personally. We are more apt to agree on change if it's something we can maybe think differently about, or if the change is just to change our opinion. We tend to be, more agreeable toward that. But when the change is personal, when somebody says, well, what you need to do is to stop doing this, or you shouldn't do that because it does something negative over here. As I said, that gets to be a little bit more difficult. So the change that I want to talk to you about today is one of how to stop being a slave. That's one of my favorite topics today. I recognize that what many of you here have recognized by now, that the trauma of slavery that we experienced was not just the physical brutality. It was not just the being beat, being separated, and a lot of other things. It was the brainwashing that took place during that time. It was the psychological trauma and the terrors that were put into us that today still make it hard for us to get an education on the truth about ourselves or the time and what must be done. Some of us think certainly that talking about slavery has been done too much. Many of us certainly think that it's over and we have other issues to deal with, and that if we dwell on the topic of slavery too long, that it will start to make us feel so victimized we won't be able to make progress. But we were victimized, and we haven't made any progress even without discussing slavery. So perhaps if we get into that and start trying to deal with the reality of our life, it's been a topic we have protected from our children. We haven't taught our children a lot about slavery. Even if we adults are not settled with it, we've kind of pushed it under the rug because we didn't want our children to think they were being born into a racist world. When the Eskimos have a baby, they take the baby and throw it in the cold water, throw it in the river. If the baby survives that, then they take care of it, and they nurse it back to health. If it thrives, and they take care of it. Now, they do that based on the fact that if the Eskimo baby can't deal with the reality of the Eskimo life, which is cold water, cold air, then they don't let it live. They figure then if you're not ready to deal with life here in Alaska, then you may as well die now, because this is what it's going to be like. We don't do that with our children. We protect them from the truth. We protect the people we know from the truth because we have such a good heart. We don't want to tell them what life is really like out here. And so consequently, by us not giving them the truth and by us misrepresenting all of the motives of the white people that our children grew up around and were influenced by, today our children don't hold the white people responsible. They hold us. Because we didn't give them the truth. We didn't tell them who our ancient enemy was. We didn't tell them who our current enemy was. We didn't tell them the truth. So they took it out of most of the school books. Very few of our young people can even discuss slavery beyond the fact that it was something that happened a long time ago that don't have nothing to do with what's going on today. That's the brainwashing they have been taught. So part of the education has to be for us as adults and as parents to get a new understanding about what slavery did to us so we can pass that on to our children and insist that they be taught about their slave history and many of the incidents that have ultimately impacted upon where we are today. You have to first change your idea to change your environment, because our environment just represents our idea. And when we look around us and when I travel throughout this country, I certainly have a great opportunity to see the ideas that we are expressing, and they, certainly most of them are not good. When I first wrote How Not to Eat Pork, A Life Without the Pig back in 1985, I wrote it to try to help my people. I was trying to help y'all then. And it was a book about how to avoid eating pork, how to take it out of your diet, how to shop in a grocery store without buying items that contain pork, how to brush your teeth, take a bath without using pork, and how to order in a restaurant, just so many things. I wrote the book because in traveling around, I would talk with a lot of the people about the pork, and I would bring out the slide projection, and I would show them different kind of worm, and I would show it to them in the meat. I would show it to them in the brain, in the intestines. I would really just show this parasite. And, of course, right now, that book, it has remained popular. But we have a lot of black doctors now who are insistent on telling our people that they can eat pork, it's okay. And that they just, it's just the people who have a religious reason. Well, there ain't no religion that advocates to eating a pork. All the religions are against it. Doesn't matter what your religion is. Many of our people still eat it. It's something that came out of slavery. We treat it like it's some kind of cultural pride fest. We'll eat ribs on July 4th. We act like that's part of our culture. Something to be proud of. And so I have grown to learn that it's not even the symbolic idea that pork is bad for us because of the trichina worm. What's worse is that it is a symbol of slavery that we've never gotten re-educated on about why we shouldn't want to deal with anything that connects us back to that, especially something that has the potential to be still harmful to us. In my new book, Are You Still a Slave?, I mentioned about the fact that fried chicken is something we learned to eat in slavery. We didn't have no fried chicken in Africa, in Asia. And that's a holdover practice we got from slavery that's keeping all of those big white people in business. If we stop eating fried chicken 1 week, it'll put KFC out of business. But we are so addicted to it, we think fried chicken is, part of our culture too. It was used as a prize. Something the English discovered, they would give us, a little piece of fried chicken and a biscuit or some honey. It was something, they used to negotiate with us to be against the rest of our sisters and brothers on the plantation. And today it's the Negro national bird, the fried chicken. So, I'm not saying that we don't need to eat fried chicken. But if you eat it, we know fried foods are not good for us anyway, but if you're going to eat fried chicken, then know why and how you got to be so attached to it. Recognize what you're satisfying in yourself when you smell it and it smells so good to you. Know that that's genetically something you have brought with you through your fallopian tube, through your ovaries, through your sperm from slavery. When we think of genetic inheritance, we tend to think of only physical attributes. We tend to think of, the type of hair you have, or your skin color, the shape of your eyes, or face, or whatever. But cultural traits are also inherited. Trauma is inherited. And the slave masters knew the effect of trauma, which is why if they were going to hang a man or burn a woman or whatever they do, they would make all other slaves come out and watch. They'd put the little baby on the ground under the tree so they could see the father be hung. Because they were working to put a genetic imprint of trauma to the brain and to the heart and to the blood of the people that lived on, so they could keep birthing that idea of fear, frustration, confusion. And they've been successful so far because we haven't really had an individual education, re-education on what we need to do to stop acting like slaves. In 1990, when I wrote The Black Man's Guide to Understand the Black Woman, I'm sure everybody here know we went immediately to hell then. It was a new education for us. It was a topic we had not been used to discussing. We had always had books discussing the black man and how low down and no good he was. But we had never had the balance on that scale about sometimes how low down and no good we are. So when I put that out, of course, we had problems, but it was to create a new education. And I'm happy to report that many of the people who 5 years ago disagreed with that book, now you have to realize 5 years later, I can write another volume now, because things are worse. All right? But many of the people who read that book at that time have now come to the conclusion that, yeah, there's a lot of validity in there. These things are going on around us. Many of them are going on inside of us. And then a couple of years later, then I wrote the sequel to Black Woman's Guide to Understand the Black Man. And of course, the sisters have charged me that I was not as hard on the brothers as I was on the sisters. Now, the brothers don't feel like that because the issues are different. The issue we need to get a re-education on is domesticity. The issue that our man needs is one of leadership. So we got two different kinds of problems. I couldn't deal with them in the same way. And certainly these brothers that we have here today are more qualified to speak on any of that than I am. I'm going to yield to them shortly. But the Black Man's Guide and the Black Woman's Guide are both now required reading in 51 colleges and universities. So our young people are trying to deal with this. And as I said, my latest release, which is the Are You Still a Slave, is a test workbook. I call it a Freedom IQ test. And it's designed to show us, to help us to just itemize. See, we can keep talking about what we need to do, what y'all need to do, what they ought to do, what they should do. We can keep talking about this big collective and our need to have some kind of massive unity. Or we can talk about individually and take this responsibility for self. What am I doing to keep our people down? How am I contributing to the problem? You know, just dealing with self. What's happening in my house? You know, what am I buying? What am I eating? What am I thinking? Where am I going? What am I doing that keeps me acting like a slave even though I no longer have a slave master? What kind of habits do we have? How are the habits expressed? Just day-to-day life. I want to take it from being so much theory and bring it to some practicum, this study of self. Just see what you think, why you think like that, what's the root of that idea, where did you get that from? You know, who said it, where did I hear it? And so that book talks about some real scholarship. It's 50 questions. They're no trick questions, they're true or false. And you get a score at the end. This time I'm not pointing the finger at you. You're going to take the test, grade yourself. You're going to come up with your own score, and then you deal with it. I won't even know. Okay? But it talks about, you know, all of the tricks that you know we have played, like the trick of somebody suggesting to us or saying to us, black is beautiful. I'm black and I'm proud. That sounds good. It's a very good concept. It's even the truth. But we don't believe it. We don't really think, not yet, that black is beautiful. See, we are the only people on earth that every time we get mad at somebody, no, you never hear the Indians say you red so-and-so. The Japanese don't say you yellow no good so-and-so. The white people don't even say you white low down so-and-so. But whenever we get mad at each other, you and me, and when we want to say the worst thing that we can think of to each other, we preface it with, you low down black, you black this, you're black no good that, a black so-and-so so-and-so. We don't ever cuss nobody out without using the word black. No other nationality of people here uses their color to curse but us. And when we are angry, that's when we calling on, you know, the very base roots inside to express that anger. And the first word we think of when we want to say the very worst thing is that we say black. So we need to check that on ourselves. I've even heard black people call white people a black something. You know, I mean, it's not considered that great a word. You know, it's really only been less than 30 years that we even was dealing with it like that. You know, but we need to certainly, you know, try to give some consideration to that. And to think about the fact that most of the people that are light-skinned really prefer to be light-skinned. If we all had a choice, we would like to have a certain color. We haven't really got past that. See, we've been so bombarded with white skin all of our lives as being the most attractive, surrounded by the best products, the most beautiful. And so, now we're doing better, and so we're getting plastic surgery, and we're getting things that used to be just reserved for white people. that used to just be reserved for white people, but now we're able to have insurance and get different plastic surgery. But you don't find no black people who get no plastic surgery to get their nose made bigger. You don't find no black men or women who get no surgery, as she mentioned in the film, to get their lips enlarged. In fact, we still laugh at that in each other. Not dealing with the people who taught us that we look funny. That's not an original idea. We've been looking at each other for over 76 trillion years. We didn't ever think we looked funny up until 6,000 years ago. And somebody made so much mockery of us that now we make mockery of each other for having big eyes or big lips. Because the standard of beauty that we have unconsciously accepted dictates that you have thinner lips, thinner nose, and to be a certain color. So we need an education on our true feelings and what we have about color. We need to try to deal with that some and try to come to the truth about it. We also need to get an education on how we really started to devalue the black man and how he really started to devalue himself. Not just because of what happened to our men in slavery. We know that they were disenfranchised during that time. We need to get an education on the slavery process so that we will stop starting to, what the messenger used to call the imagination of truth. So many documents I read now trying to come up with information that will document that the slaves, really the families wasn't that broke up. Actually, most of the families stayed together. Then I read someplace else that actually the beatings were really rare. Not that many people were beaten, Or that the black men that say had jobs in town, they really were treated just like any other white man or human being. That's all lies. It's just not the truth. But we are trying to change some of that history ourselves so that we can accept it better and so that it's not so painful to us. Because we're not settled about the slavery thing. And the white people know we are not settled about it. That's why they don't really trust us, because they don't know when we're going to really get mad about that. Yeah. We're not settled on it. It's an issue that's not settled. We talk about, we be angry or we express hostility or, something about it. But we don't really have that settled. That's one of the reasons we choose not to talk about it too much. Because we don't know what to do with those emotions. Well, the rage that it causes. We don't know what to do with that. We don't know where to put that at, who to put that on. Especially since they keep saying, well, that's over, and now, we all going to get along today. And that's just happened back then. Don't charge me for it. That was my ancestors. Well, we can still charge the slave master's children. We're still suffering from what our ancestors went through. We're not slaves today either. We're not slaves today either, but we living with, the trickle down from that. So if they're not slave masters, they got to live with the trickle down from that. None of us pick our roles. But since we are, in these, we can still hold them responsible for that. Every one of them has tried to be a slave master over me. Every day. And you too. You just don't understand how it's coming at you. But the way, let me see how to put this. See, the fall of Rome was not an event. It was a process. And that process was the breakdown of society values, rules, morals, and mores that kept civilization intact. You know, one of the things that's certainly helping to destroy us is integration. You know, I do talk shows all the time, and most of the talk shows I do, because they can't hardly find no other black person public who will say that they don't want to intermarry with them, so they generally call me. And, you know, it's like it'd be the last of a fading breed, because put against the wall, we're such a loving people. We need to get educated on love, re-educated on love from the people that told us that you're supposed to love everybody. God don't love everybody. You can't do nothing bigger than God. You know, God hates the sinners, the evildoers, the wrongdoers. He hates them people. God has always hated the sinners. So we have never had no God. That's the white God or the black God that love everybody. So you can't do what God himself can't do. So you have to decide that you love some people and you don't like the others. Now, I don't mean to take the hatred to do nothing, but you need to be able to categorize people. White people don't have no problem saying they don't love us. But because we're such a good people, we're such a warm and loving people, we forgive everybody. We forgive the white people for slavery faster than the Indians forgave them for taking the country. If you can understand that, you know, we don't have that kind of heart. That's how the black man is the original man and has been on the earth all of these years. That's how God chose him to represent humanity and civilization, because you have that kind of heart. The forgiving and just heart. And if the white man, if those people were able to live in harmony, you would open your arms to them because you accept everybody. But you need to get a new education on who to love. I can't do a show. All of the black women on the show stand up and talk about how much they love. Well, I don't agree with Sister Shahrazad. That's the first thing they all say. They don't agree with me. And then as soon as they say that, the white man put the mic right under their mouth. Then go ahead and talk. You know, because I'm not teaching hatred, but I'm teaching the re-education of you got to love yourself first. How we going to love all them? We can't even get along with each other, and we look alike. So we can't, and it don't mean we have to hate them, but you need to know who represents your open enemy. I'm not going to lie to you about that. They don't like you. And they wish you would solve your problems and leave them alone. You know, I have to deal with that everywhere. You ain't never heard of one white man that ever grew up in the world and got rich and went and married some Negro. Name one. There is none. Out of the whole 270 million, there's not one. We only represent 12% of the population here. And 45% of all of the people that's black in America that's married, 45% is married to somebody in another race. Trying to get away from self. Don't want to be around nothing that remind me of me. You know? So we need to get an education on that, just what we really think about each other and what we really think about being black. You can't get out of it. You can go somewhere and pretend you white, or you can be around so many white people you start to talk like them and dress like them, but you still ain't white. You know. And then they give you that where you can have the children, and the children are biracial. The World Health Organization only recognizes two kinds of life, human life on earth. White and non-white. It's only two kinds. Just like there are only two sexes, male and female. You need a re-education on that. You know. And I don't have to be afraid to say that. That's just it's the truth. We have problems in our community. We have women who have failed at being women, who now want to be men. We have men who have failed at being men, who now want to be women. Those are problems we have. We need a new education, a re-education on gender identification. And I know that's difficult because the white people are trying to make a gender-free society. You know, when we were having illegitimate children, or children out of wedlock or whatever, then they called them illegitimate little bastard children or whatever. And then when the white woman started doing it, now it's called single parenting. You know? So we need a new education on their language. See, they changed the language to suit their social idea at the moment. And every time they change their social behavior, we change ours to do what they're doing. So when the white women went to the white men and said, listen, we get ready to get liberated from y'all because we tired of this. We're not going to be in the house no more. We're not going to be cooking. We get ready to go get a job in corporate America. We want to work outside the home, too. Well, we as black women, we jump right in there. Except we didn't have nothing to get liberated from the black man from. He was no big man over us. We were all both struggling, trying to get the equal opportunity. I'm talking about late 50s now when it started, trying to get jobs, trying to get housing. We didn't have he didn't have any big stuff over us. The white woman came and introduced us to the feminist movement and made everything we were working with a man against a woman and a woman against a man. So they made us take sides. And so we left our men. Many of us set an example and went with the white woman's liberation movement, and we still carrying that idea today. And they taught us that we should be fighting for independence. That's true. Not for independence from the black man, though. Independence from them. You know. So we got that mixed up. We got that mixed up. And we're paying for that. Our children are paying for that. Them little savages now running around in the streets, and we want the white people to come in with some solution and straighten that out. They're not going to do it because they don't care nothing about our children. No more than they care about you and me. So the next time you get up somewhere and talk about your love for everybody, think about some of this, of how you need to be re-educated to stop talking like a slave. The slave master said on the plantation, before they decided to give us their holy Bible, the slave master said, they were debating it. Slave master said, now give them the Bible, because this book will serve me when I'm present and when I'm not present. Because once you learn, to forgive all of your enemies and love all of your neighbors as yourself, and then don't persecute those who spitefully use you, and after you accept all of that doctrine, then you will remain a slave. You don't need no slave master. You don't need nobody over you. Every day you're going to conduct your life like a slave. You're going to respond like one. You're going to talk like one. You're going to dress like one. Spend your one day like one. And love like one. That's just, how that is. So I'm going to close with just giving you the general slave profile so that you have some idea what we're talking about. You need to be able to look in the mirror and know what you're doing, but you also need to be able to look around you at the other slaves and recognize, where they are too. A lot of what I talk about sometimes people say is not relevant anymore because things have changed. But you must remember that change doesn't necessarily mean better. Change just means different. And things are different. We are in the worst condition now than we have ever been in 439 years. So just give you a few of these, and I'm going to just move through this quickly, because we want to get to Dr. Jeffries and Dr. Martin, who have a very important message to bring us. Refers to other black people as you guys instead of sister and brother. You know, we used to just call each other sister and brother, but as the white people have taught us more and more this personal independence, we don't want to say no words to each other that might suggest that we are connected or that we have any kind of family relationship. And so everywhere I go, all over the country, everywhere I am when I'm around black women and black men, what you fellas gonna do? Where are the guys? And I wonder, what are you talking about? You know, and before they call me Sister Shahrazad or Sister Ali, they'll say, lady. You know, they don't want no connection. That's what a slave do. Slave want to be depersonalized. Slave don't think about nobody but self. Slave selfish, trying to survive and think it can't act like it got no relatives. You know, that's what a slave does. The slave also wears brand name clothes so that the designer's name is clearly visible. Now, that's a bad problem y'all know we have. You can't look at a black man on TV. He got Nike on his head. He got Reebok on his chest. He got something else on his feet. You know, I'm so tired of y'all being slavery time walking advertisements. If you're going to put somebody's name on, put your own name on. You know, stop wearing everybody else's name. Stop acting like a slave on a plantation. White people brag about how cheap they got something. They got y'all tricked up. Y'all brag about how much you paid for it. How much money you gave them. As the sister explained, the markup on clothing and garments is 40, 50, sometimes 75,000%. We can't afford it. We ain't making no clothes. You know? So, you know, that's something else we need to do. And, of course, refusing to call blacks by their African or Egyptian name. We say we can't say it, you know, so we try to not call people by that. We want to keep the name that we have inherited from the slave masters. Now, that's really a slave. If you just think about, as I have said before, you never find a Jew that'll name their child Adolf Hitler. So why are you still naming yours Bridget and Amy and Shirley? You know, that doesn't make any sense. Don't you see that the first stigma of slavery is that they took our name and our God? We can't say it didn't matter. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't have did it. Everything they did mattered. So when you want to hold on to the name of Johnson because your father's name was Johnson and his father was, and then some slave master behind him somewhere was named Johnson, think about that. It's no insult to your parents. They had a slave name too. So did mine. That's not disrespecting them because they were slaves too. You need your own name. And if you don't want your own name, you acting like a slave. If you're satisfied with your American, European, Gentile name, then you're acting like a slave. That's another thing that we need a re-education on. Buys cards and gifts to celebrate every European holiday. Stop doing that. You know? Every holiday the white people got. Black people running in the store. Valentine's Day, Easter, Halloween. Y'all coming out with a sack. You know? None of them holidays, you know, got anything on it even remotely about us. Martin Luther King, that ain't really no holiday. The white people didn't even like him till he died. They don't like nobody till they dead. Ain't no problem no more. You know? So stop giving them money for every holiday. Express your love to your loved one on some date that you pick out. You don't have to worry about being romantic. You're not the Romans. You can't be romantic. You know? A whole lot of what we try to be, it's not even in us. We're trying to mimic them. So don't be, you know, that kind of a slave. Okay, promotes their children to participate in integrated activities. Stop teaching your children to get along with white people before they get along with black people. Okay. Now this is the real slave, and I see this from L.A. to New York. Wears dreads, braids, or African clothes, and has a white maid on their arm. Okay, that's still going on. That's still going on. In fact, most of the people is getting so in the big cities that you see dressed like that. They got a white person somewhere. And then when I show up, they try to act like I embarrass them. You know, like my ideas are so ancient. Like in the TV studios backstage, you all don't have any idea what's going on. It's a riot. You know, they all try to act like they're ashamed of me. I treat the white people so bad. I make everybody do their job, do this. I just be on them. And then the black people, they be acting scared. They be acting like I'm embarrassing them. You know? Okay, another mark of a slave is a person that loves to move into a neighborhood with all white. Trying to get away from the rest of us. Okay? And certainly a mark of a slave is a person that insists on eating pork no matter what they have learned about it. Okay? Buys black children white dolls and books featuring white characters. All those symbols mean something. Don't let your children know what white people look like before they know what black people look like. Let them learn about self. If you're teaching them about the slave master first, then you acted like a slave. Becomes happy and animated when talking to white people. We see that all the time. You know, some of us can't hardly talk at all, but you let somebody white start asking us a question. You see all the teeth, give up all the directions. I see it all the time. I hate that. I was on an elevator in Chicago, and I was just standing there with the bellhop, and I was standing there while two white men got on the elevator, and I was, you know how you do to keep from looking at everybody. I was looking at the numbers go across. I was up on like the 18th, 19th floor. Anyway, the devil over here to my left say, are you here for a conference? And I said, no. And I was so mad at myself. I answered automatically. And I said, none of your business what I'm here for. And then I turned my head back around. You know, because I got mad. I was angry. And I recognized that when that white man opened his mouth, what is it? You know. I was so, you know, so it can happen to anybody. That's my point. And I know I'm conscious on it. So I just turned my head and said, none of your business what I'm here for. You know, I ain't the information bureau. You know, I don't have to answer, you know, I ain't got to answer no questions. You don't have to do anything. And that's just, as I said, that's not to be hostile. Just ask me, well, how do I get along with them on my job if I don't laugh at their jokes? I said, well, if it's not in your job description, I say, then you just need to go with Allah. Just do your job, and if they mess up, sue them. You know, but they make that a requirement that we have to laugh at their jokes. And all adult black women know, you know, the frustration of having to be around some white men that's saying something, you know, that's offhand. You know, I won't even, you know, I have to deal with it. I won't even ride in the white limousine car because I'm not riding no 2 and 3 hours with no white man in no closed-up car. So I had to have a black driver. And they came and asked me the other day, I felt really bad. The people came out and they needed to make pictures. They were taking pictures for a promotion we're doing. And the white woman called me and asked me, was it all right if she sent a white photographer? And I thought, boy, they really think I'm racist. You know. So, of course, I told her, no, I need a black photographer because I don't think he does. Because every time I travel and say I don't want to be bothered with no white people, then they have to go hire and round up a bunch of black people to come and deal with me. And I have reached a point where I can have things pretty much like I want to have them. And so that means I can ask for what I want. And if they say no, I can say, well, okay, I ain't coming. You know. So, you know, I've been blessed in that way. Now, the other way that we act like a slave, I got 5 more minutes. Let me tell you this. The other way that we act like a slave is that we make our little children One of the first things we do is they're growing up, when they get to be 2 or 3 years old, and we bring company in, we say, get up and dance. Show them you can dance. Watch them dance. That's from slavery. You know, they used to make us dance. Make all the people dance. And so we still do that. When we have a baby, the first thing it can do, we call somebody in, and we'll spank that child if it won't dance for the company. We'll beat that child. You better dance. That's from slavery. Being greedy. You know, we got a reputation across the country. If we go somewhere to a buffet or eat all you can or eat all you want, we clean them out. You know, we take food home in our pocketbook. You know, that's from slavery. It's a slave reaction of being deprived of food and having to sneak and hide and hoard food. So don't go out. If you're going to go to the white people restaurant, then don't go in there acting like an abject slave. Don't do that to yourself. Not that we got no image to protect in front of them, because they already know our condition, so I don't have nothing to hide from them. I'll be wide open with them, because they already know what condition I'm in. Yeah, and I'm mad about it. You know, and that's the same, that, you know, that goes with the being overly attracted to fine clothes, stealing paper clips and stuff on the job, stuff you ain't never gonna need at home. Come home with a box of staples. Don't do that. That's a slave behavior. You know, work at the hospital, bring home a crate of cotton balls. Don't do that. Anything. During slavery, we had to steal. We had to use pilferage. We had to get any little thing we could. And so today, we still do that. We can't help it. If it's there, we'll get it. You know, don't do that. Don't act like a slave. You know, don't do it. You know, and it takes some control, because it's like an automatic reaction, because it's so deep into us, you know. But, you know, try not to do that, you know. White people gave the Indians alcohol. They gave the black people drugs. So we have to be careful. We know that they have substances that they will give us to try to destroy us. And we can talk about the violence on the TV and all of that, but there don't no white people come in our house and cut the TV on. We cut the TV on in our house. And we can cut it off. You know, so every time we decide, you know, to do a lot of these kind of basic things that we got from slavery, just don't act like a slave. I want to leave you with that thought. Stop acting like a slave. Find out what the behavior of a slave is and stop doing that. It is one of the reasons we cannot make progress, because they put some things in motion that even without a slave master, we still acting like a slave. All right? Assalamu alaikum.
Let's give it up. Give it up. Give it up. That's our sister, right? Well, brothers and sisters.